I heard the heavy footsteps of Mr. Parks behind me, his breath hot on my neck as he pushed me into a shadowy corner behind the school in Dallas, Texas. And then a scream shattered the air. "Get away from him!" It was Victoria, the quiet girl from class I barely knew, charging in with pepper spray in her hand, eyes blazing like a warrior. He screamed, clutching his face, and ran. I stood there, trembling, heart pounding like it was going to explode. I hugged Victoria tightly, tears streaming down my face, thinking she had just saved me from a nightmare. But then she whispered something that felt like a lightning bolt through my chest. "I know what he is," she said, voice shaking. "Because he's the father of the baby I'm carrying." I froze. Victoria, 16, always smiling in class, was pregnant. And he was the father? Mr. Parks? The model teacher the whole school worshipped? I couldn't wrap my head around it. Why had she kept this inside? Why hadn't anyone believed her? Why did the entire school turn on her, call her a liar, a troublemaker, just because she had the courage to speak the truth? I looked at Victoria. Her eyes were full of pain, but also fire. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't stay silent. I had to stand beside her. We had to expose the predator hiding behind the podium, the man who had ruined not only Victoria's life, but maybe the lives of other girls still trapped in the dark. This wasn't just a true crime Reddit story. This was real. This was the story of Victoria's courage and our fight for justice in the heart of Dallas, Texas. I'll never forget that moment, when Victoria pulled me out of the shadows. But what came after? When the whole school turned their backs on her, shamed her for being a pregnant teen, and treated him like a hero? That's when the real battle began. How could we possibly fight back when the entire system stood behind the predator, and Victoria was exiled by the whole school just for being a pregnant teen? That was the question I couldn't stop asking myself after the day she saved me behind the school in Dallas, Texas. After she whispered that Mr. Parks was the father of her baby. I'm the narrator of this story, and I'll never forget the image of Victoria walking back into our high school just weeks later, her belly slightly visible, eyes burning with quiet strength and heartbreak. She wasn't met with sympathy. She was met with cruelty. Victoria, the girl who used to shine the brightest in class, whose smile could light up a Texas morning, was now treated like an outcast. As if she were the one who had done something wrong. As if she deserved to be punished for speaking the truth about Mr. Parks. On her first day back, the hallway went silent. Then the whispers started. "Look, that's the pregnant girl," a classmate sneered under her breath. "She just wants attention." The stares, the smirks, the whispers, they didn't stop. They called her a liar, a homewrecker, all because she had the courage to expose the model teacher everyone worshipped. But the worst part? AI-generated images, fake, sexually explicit photos of Victoria started circulating on social media. Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. It spread like wildfire across the Texas plains. "Look at this trash," some guy in class wrote under one of the posts. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments mocking her. Nobody cared if they were fake. I saw her standing at her locker, hands shaking, tears silently falling as she stared at the printed-out AI photos someone had taped to the door. She didn't cry out. She didn't scream. She wiped her tears and walked into class, like she had accepted the cruelty. I wanted to run to her. I wanted to scream at the school, "She's the victim, not the villain." But deep down, I knew I wasn't enough. Because the entire system was stacked against her. From the students to the teachers to the very adults who should have protected her. Victoria wasn't just shunned, her entire reputation was annihilated. Like she was the only one at fault in this tragedy. How could I help her when everyone treated Mr. Parks like a saint? And we were just two girls trying to fight a machine built to silence us. The entire school worshipped Mr. Parks like a saint, leaving me and Victoria feeling like two small voices screaming into a void. This was after she'd been relentlessly shunned by our Dallas high school. After her reputation was shattered by cruel gossip and AI-generated explicit images spread like wildfire online. I'm the narrator of this story, and I still can't understand. How could everyone blindly trust Mr. Parks? The same man Victoria said was the father of her unborn child. The same man who cornered me behind the school. The same man who might have hurt other girls too. Mr. Parks wasn't just a teacher. He was the ideal, a symbol of perfection. A model educator admired across Dallas. That made our fight for justice nearly impossible. Mr. Parks, or Mr. P, as everyone fondly called him, was the most beloved English teacher in our school. He was in his 40s, about 6 feet tall, with brown hair streaked in silver and a warm smile people described as inspiring. He had won Teacher of the Year in Dallas ISD back in 2022. Parents adored him. He hosted parent meetings in Oak Lawn, invited them to his home for coffee, and spoke passionately about whole child education. To them, he was a mentor, a hero, a trusted role model. "He's the best teacher I've ever had," A girl in our class once said with admiration, while I sat there, chilled to the bone, haunted by what he'd done to me behind the school building. Students loved him for his storytelling, his passion for literature, and the way he made class fun. He offered after-school tutoring sessions, which Victoria and I later realized were traps. Manipulative setups meant to isolate and control vulnerable girls. Mr. Parks always made things interesting, one guy said at a school assembly once. The whole auditorium applauded like he was some living legend. But I'll never forget that cold, sharp look in his eyes behind the school. The way he smirked like he truly believed no one could stop him. Like he knew the system would always protect him. How could an entire school be so blind? How could they revere a man we knew as a predator, while the truth hid in the shadows of his perfect lessons? The dark side of Mr. Parks, hidden behind his flawless lectures, is something I can't stop thinking about after seeing the entire Dallas high school worship him like a saint. After Victoria and I realized he wasn't the model teacher everyone thought. I'm the narrator, and I can't forget the day Victoria saved me from him behind the school, revealing he was the father of the baby she was carrying. A horrifying truth no one in Dallas dared believe. But as Victoria told me what she went through, I realized Mr. Parks' dark side wasn't just a one-off. It was a pattern of manipulation, grooming, and abuse, hidden in the tutoring sessions he held, turning young girls like us into prey without anyone knowing. Victoria told me one quiet afternoon at White Rock Lake Park in Dallas, her voice trembling as she recalled the tutoring sessions with Mr. Parks. At first, it seemed normal. He offered to help her improve her literature grades with inspiring lectures the whole school loved. But soon, those sessions became a nightmare. He started saying weird things, Victoria whispered, her eyes distant. Like I was special, that he understood me better than anyone, that I could trust him. He manipulated her, making her feel like he was the only one who cared while exploiting a 16-year-old girl's innocence. Then he crossed boundaries, lingering touches, suggestive comments that made her shiver, and times he kept her after class saying, "This is our secret." Victoria tried to resist, but she was scared. Scared no one would believe her. Scared the school would turn on her, as they did when she got pregnant. He said if I told, people would think I was a liar, she said, tears streaming. And he was right. No one believed me. I sat there, my heart crushed, unable to believe that Mr. Parks, the man revered by Oaklawn parents, the Outstanding Teacher Award winner, could be such a depraved predator. How could we expose him when the system stayed silent, and Victoria's accusations were brushed off as a teenage girl's impulsive emotions? The entire system's silence, dismissing Victoria's accusations as the impulsive emotions of a teenage girl, made us realize that exposing Mr. Parks would be harder than ever. After Victoria told me about his horrifying dark side, after those tutoring sessions turned into a series of grooming and manipulation in Dallas, Texas. I'm the narrator, and I can't believe a predator like Mr. Parks is protected by the very adults who should be protecting us. The system didn't just refuse to listen to Victoria, it blamed her, making me feel like the whole world was against us, as if we were standing in a Texas prairie storm with nowhere to take shelter. Victoria decided to speak out right after discovering she was pregnant, hoping someone would believe her. She went to the principal's office at Dallas High School, her voice trembling but resolute, recounting everything. The tutoring sessions Mr. Parks used to manipulate her, the suggestive comments that made her shudder, and the horrific truth that he was the father of the baby she was carrying. But the principal, a middle-aged woman with cold eyes, just sat there, expressionless, then brushed off Victoria's accusations as if they were a fabricated story. "Victoria, you're a teenager. Your emotions can exaggerate things," she said in a flat tone. "Are you sure you're not imagining a problem that isn't real?" Victoria was stunned, tears streaming down her cheeks, but the principal didn't stop. "Mr. Parks is an outstanding teacher, celebrated by the entire Dallas school district. Do you have any evidence to back up your claims?" Victoria had no concrete proof, just her story, just the pain she carried inside, and the principal used that lack of evidence to silence her. "If you keep spreading rumors, you could get into serious trouble," she warned, her gaze sharp, as if Victoria were the one at fault, as if she were tarnishing the reputation of an exemplary teacher no one dared question. I stood outside the office, hearing every word through the slightly open door. My heart crushed as Victoria walked out, her face pale, her eyes empty, as if the whole world had turned its back on her. How could we go on when the system silently protected a predator, and I knew it was just the two of us who could stand up to seek the truth? It's just the two of us who can stand up to uncover the truth. That's what I keep telling myself after the system went silent, shielding a predator like Coach Parks. It all started when the principal brushed off Victoria's accusations like they were just the impulsive emotions of a teenage girl in Dallas, Texas. I'm the narrator, and I can't stand watching Victoria, the girl who saved me from Coach Parks behind the school, the girl now carrying his child, get turned on by the entire school, painted as the villain just for daring to speak the horrific truth. I know if no one believes us, we have to take matters into our own hands. We have to investigate quietly to expose Coach Parks, even if it means going up against a system hell-bent on silencing us. After that day when Victoria left the principal's office with hollow eyes, I pulled her to a quiet corner of the school courtyard in Dallas, determined not to let her fight alone. "Victoria, I believe you," I said, my voice steady, "and I'm not letting Coach Parks get away with this. We need to find proof." Victoria looked at me, her eyes a mix of shock and hope, like it was the first time someone truly had her back. We became allies, two small girls against an entire system, but with a fire burning as fierce as a Texas prairie blaze. We started investigating on the down low, reaching out to other girls who'd been in Coach Parks' classes, girls who might have gone through the same thing. First, I approached a friend named Mia, who'd had one-on-one tutoring with him last year. "Mia, did you ever notice anything off about Coach Parks?" I asked gently one afternoon in the school library. Mia froze, her eyes flickering, then she shook her head. "No, I don't know anything," she said, but her voice trembled like she was hiding a deep fear. Victoria and I didn't give up. We kept asking others, from girls in our English class to those who'd been in the Oak Lawn Club he coached. Every time we asked, I saw their eyes shift. Some dodged the question, some went quiet, and some even broke down crying. But no one dared speak the truth. I know we're touching on something horrifying. A secret Coach Parks is buried behind his warm smile and inspiring pep talks. How can we break through this wall of silence when the other girls are just as scared as Victoria, and we're starting to see that Coach Parks' behavior might be a pattern? We realized Coach Parks' behavior might be a pattern after days of me and Victoria quietly digging, after talking to other girls who'd been in his classes, and seeing the fear etched deep in their eyes at our Dallas, Texas high school. I'm the narrator, and I can't shake the chill down my spine when every girl we approached reacted so strangely, like they were hiding a terrifying secret, like Coach Parks didn't just hurt Victoria but left scars that won't heal on so many others in the shadows. But what broke me and Victoria the most wasn't just the silence of the victims. It was the brutal backlash from everyone around us. Like the whole school was trying to smother our voices. We kept at it, tracking down every girl who'd had one-on-one tutoring with Coach Parks, but their reactions gave me the creeps. One afternoon in the school cafeteria in Dallas, Victoria and I sat down next to a girl named Emily, who'd been one of his star students 2 years ago. "Emily, did you ever feel weird around Coach Parks?" I asked softly. But her face went pale instantly, her eyes darting like she'd been yanked back to a nightmare. "No, I don't know anything," she said, her voice shaking before bolting away, leaving me and Victoria staring at each other. Helpless, another girl, Sophia, broke down crying the second we mentioned Coach Parks' name one afternoon at White Rock Lake Park. She just shook her head. "I can't talk about it. I don't want to remember." Each reaction felt like a knife to the gut, like we were touching an open wound. And it hit me that Coach Parks didn't just hurt Victoria. He'd built a pattern, a cycle of abuse no one dared call out. But the retaliation didn't stop there. One day, when Victoria opened her locker at school, she found new AI-generated photos, fake, explicit images of her in compromising poses, plastered inside, with the word liar scrawled across them. Victoria stood there, hands trembling, tears streaming down her face, but she didn't break. She turned to me, her voice steady. "We have to keep going." It felt like the whole world was against us, like the biting chill of a Texas prairie after a frosty night, but I knew we couldn't stop. How do we find more evidence when the school's turned its back on us, and we're forced to sneak into Coach Parks' classroom to get answers? We had to break into Coach Parks' classroom to find answers. That's what Victoria and I decided after realizing his behavior was a pattern. After days of facing the victim's silence and the school's vicious backlash in Dallas, Texas. I'm the narrator, and I knew that without solid evidence, our accusations would keep getting dismissed, just like the principal did when Victoria bravely spoke up. We had no other choice. We had to act, even if it meant risking everything, because we couldn't let Coach Parks keep hurting other girls, like he did to Victoria, who's pregnant with his child, or like he attacked me behind the school. One late evening after classes at Dallas High, Victoria and I slipped into Coach Parks' classroom, our hearts pounding like a stampede. We waited until the hallways were deserted, the faint glow of fluorescent lights casting long, creepy shadows, and it felt like we were walking into a horror movie. The classroom door wasn't locked. Maybe he was arrogant enough to think his secrets were safe. We eased it open, the smell of chalk dust and old books hitting us, but I focused on his desk where we might find the proof we needed. Victoria opened a drawer, her hands trembling while I searched the bookshelf, careful not to leave any trace. Then I found an old gradebook. Next to the names of female students, he'd marked tiny, tiny stars, 1 to 5, like some twisted rating system I didn't fully understand right then. "What is this?" I whispered, my voice shaking, handing it to Victoria. She looked at it, her face turning ghostly pale. "I don't know, but my name's here." with 5 stars. A cold dread washed over me, like we'd just uncovered something unspeakable. Then Victoria found a handwritten letter in the drawer. A note from a former student, the writing shaky, saying, "Please stop, I can't take it anymore," with a small heart scratched out in black ink. We locked eyes, fear gripping us, knowing we'd just found the first real proof that Coach Parks didn't just hurt Victoria, but so many others. We slipped out of the classroom, hearts still racing, but our determination burned fiercer than ever, like a wildfire roaring across a Texas prairie. How do we use this evidence to expose Coach Parks when the principal will do anything to protect him, and we're about to face a new wave of threats? The principal will do anything to protect Coach Parks, even turning the tables to threaten us. After Victoria and I found our first piece of evidence in his classroom, after that nerve-wracking night at Dallas High in Texas, when we uncovered the gradebook with its sickening stars and the haunting handwritten letter from a former student. I'm the narrator, and I can't believe the system keeps turning its back on us. Not just refusing to listen, but trying to silence us by painting us as liars, as if we're the ones at fault for standing up to a predator. But Victoria and I can't give up, even if it means facing a storm bigger than anything we've ever known. We brought the gradebook and the letter to the principal's office in Dallas the very next day, determined that this time she'd have to listen. I stood by Victoria, my heart pounding, as she laid the evidence on the desk, her voice trembling but resolute. "This is proof. Coach Parks didn't just hurt me. He hurt others too. You have to do something." The principal, a middle-aged woman with ice-cold eyes, glanced at the evidence, her face blank, like she'd rehearsed this moment. "Victoria, you know making false accusations is against the law, right?" she said, her voice calm but laced with menace, like the biting chill of a Texas prairie after a frosty night. I was floored, unable to believe my ears. Not only was she dismissing the evidence, she was flipping it to threaten us. "This gradebook could be anything. Those stars might just be extra credit," she went on, her gaze sharp as a blade. "And this letter? Who's to say it's real? You girls are stirring up serious trouble, and if you keep spreading rumors, there'll be consequences." Victoria stood there, her face pale, tears streaming down her cheeks, but the principal didn't let up. "Coach Parks is an outstanding teacher in the Dallas School District. You think anyone's going to believe 2 teenage girls over a man the whole community respects?" Victoria couldn't take it anymore. She broke down sobbing, turning and bolting out of the room, leaving me standing there feeling like the world had just caved in. I watched her go, my heart in a vice, knowing we weren't just fighting Coach Parks, but an entire system ready to protect him at all costs. How do we keep going when the whole school's against us, and an unexpected ally steps out of the shadows to spark hope in the darkness? An unexpected ally steps out of the shadows to spark hope in our darkest hour. Something Victoria and I never saw coming after the principal turned the tables, dismissing our evidence and leaving Victoria in tears, storming out of her office at Dallas High in Texas. I'm the narrator, and I thought we'd hit a dead end in exposing Coach Parks, the predator who hurt Victoria, got her pregnant, and attacked me behind the school. But in our bleakest moment, someone we never expected stood up, ready to fight alongside us against a system hell-bent on protecting him, giving us a glimmer of light to keep pushing for justice. Victoria and I sat in the Dallas High courtyard, her face still wet with tears from the principal's showdown, her eyes hollow, like all hope had flickered out. Then a figure approached. It was Ms. Tran, our math teacher, who we'd always pegged as strict and unapproachable. Ms. Tran, a 35-year-old Asian woman with sleek black hair tied back and sharp, steady eyes, sat down beside us. Her voice was soft but fierce. "I overheard everything in the office. I believe you." I was stunned, barely believing my ears. A teacher, an adult, actually believed us after everything? Ms. Tran shared that she'd been watching Coach Parks for a while, ever since she caught whispers from girls in her math class in Oak Lawn. "I've seen girls leave his classroom with fear in their eyes," she said, her voice dropping low. "And I reported it to the principal, but she did nothing." Ms. Tran had stayed quiet, afraid of losing her job, but seeing us stand up gave her the push she needed. "You're not alone," she said, her eyes blazing with resolve. "I'm going to help you expose him. We have to protect other girls before it's too late." Her words lit a fire in me and Victoria, like the first rays of sun breaking through a Texas prairie storm. For the first time, we felt an adult had our back, an ally we never could have predicted. Ms. Tran promised to help us dig up more evidence and connect with someone who could actually take action. Little did we know she'd lead us to a detective, as our fight for justice was about to turn a tense new page. Our fight for justice is about to turn a tense new page, as Ms. Tran connects us with a detective who could help expose Coach Parks. After that day, she shocked us by becoming our ally and reigniting hope for me and Victoria at Dallas High in Texas. I'm the narrator, and I can't believe that after all the times the system shut us down, after the days Victoria was shunned and I narrowly escaped being Coach Parks' victim, we finally have an adult who doesn't just believe us, but is ready to act. Ms. Tran opened a new door. And we know this is our biggest shot to bring a predator into the light, even if the road ahead is still fraught with danger. Ms. Tran set up a meeting at a small coffee shop in Deep Ellum, Dallas, one late afternoon, where we met Detective Sarah Mills from the Fort Worth Police Department. Sarah, a woman in her 40s with blonde hair tied high and piercing eyes, sat across from us, her voice warm but commanding. Ms. Tran filled me in. What evidence do you have to back your claims? Victoria and I exchanged a glance, our hearts pounding, then placed the gradebook and handwritten letter on the table, the proof we found in Coach Parks' classroom. Victoria, still carrying the weight of her pregnancy and the scars of her trauma, spoke with steady resolve. This is Coach Parks' gradebook. He marked stars next to girls' names, and mine has 5. And this letter's from a former student begging him to stop. Sarah studied the evidence, her expression growing graver, and I felt a spark of hope flare up, like the first sunlight breaking through a Texas prairie storm. This is a strong start, Sarah said, her voice low. But we'll need statements from other victims, and I'll need a warrant to search his place for more evidence. She explained that with this, she could launch an official investigation. But we should brace ourselves. Coach Parks, with his star teacher reputation in Dallas, won't go down easily, and the community might lose it when they hear he's under scrutiny. We left the coffee shop with a mix of hope and nerves, but our resolve burned stronger than ever. We knew justice was within reach. How could we have guessed that other victims would start coming forward, as Sarah's investigation cracked open a new door to the truth? Other victims started coming forward. Something Victoria and I never could have imagined after Detective Sarah Mills launched her official investigation into Coach Parks. Following that day, we handed over our evidence at the coffee shop in Deep Ellum, Dallas, Texas. I'm the narrator, and I'll never forget the mix of relief and raw emotion when girls who'd been silenced by fear finally stepped into the light, joining us to expose the predator who hurt them, just like he did to Victoria, now pregnant with his child, and nearly did to me behind the school. Their testimonies didn't just fuel our fight for justice. They gave the police a rock-solid case, like a wildfire of truth tearing through a Texas prairie, unstoppable. Just days after our meeting with Detective Sarah, Victoria and I got a text from Lauren, a girl who'd been in Coach Parks' class 2 years ago at Dallas High. She asked to meet at a trendy boba shop in Uptown, her eyes nervous but blazing with resolve. I can't stay quiet anymore, she said, her voice shaky. Coach Parks, he did awful things to me. Lauren shared how he manipulated her during one-on-one tutoring sessions, making her feel like she couldn't tell anyone. And when she tried, the principal brushed her off, saying she misunderstood. Soon after, Brittany, another girl from his Oak Lawn Literature Club, came forward to Sarah. Sobbing, Brittany revealed that Coach Parks sent her inappropriate texts, threatening to tank her grades if she spoke out. Then Emily, the girl who dodged us in the school cafeteria, showed up too, admitting he'd harassed her during a school field trip to White Rock Lake Park. One by one, the girls spoke out, their statements recorded, and I felt like we weren't alone anymore. Like the voices silenced for so long were rising together into an unstoppable wave, too loud to ignore. Sarah told us that with these testimonies, she could push for a warrant to search Coach Parks' house, and the case against him was growing airtight. Each testimony cut me like a knife, but it also lit a spark of justice for Victoria and every other victim in Dallas. How could we have known that these stories would uncover an even deeper truth, as the system's culture of silence faced its own reckoning? The system's culture of silence was laid bare, forcing me and Victoria to realize our fight wasn't just against Coach Parks, but a machine shielding a predator, after victims like Lauren and Brittany spoke out, and Detective Sarah Mills built a rock-solid case in Dallas, Texas. I'm the narrator, and I'll never forget the rage mixed with heartache when we learned it wasn't just students who were silenced, even teachers who tried to speak up were ignored by the Dallas school system, as if the truth was too inconvenient to face, like the biting chill of a Texas prairie after a frosty night, freezing every voice in its tracks. Sarah dug deeper into her investigation, and another teacher, Ms. Harper, who taught history, met us at Sarah's office in Fort Worth. Ms. Harper, a woman in her 50s with graying hair and regret-filled eyes, sat down, her voice heavy as she confessed she'd reported Coach Parks 3 years ago. I saw a girl leave his classroom with panic in her eyes, she said, her hands clenched tight, and I told the principal I suspected he was acting inappropriately. But the principal brushed it off, calling it a misunderstanding, insisting Coach Parks was a star teacher in the Dallas school district, whose reputation couldn't be touched. Ms. Harper tried again, emailing the school board a warning, but got no reply, until Sarah uncovered a trove of internal emails from other teachers, all ignored. One email from 2022, just a year before Victoria got pregnant, flagged Coach Parks' suspicious behavior with female students during tutoring in Oak Lawn, but the principal's response was curt. No concrete evidence, no action. Victoria and I listened, our hearts in a vice, realizing it wasn't just us being silenced. Adults who tried to protect students were shut down too, as if Coach Parks' reputation mattered more than our safety. This culture of silence didn't just protect Coach Parks, it let him keep hurting girls like Victoria, Lauren, Brittany, and nearly me. How could we keep going when the truth about the stars in his gradebook came to light, revealing the horrifying scope of his crimes? The truth about the stars in Coach Parks' gradebook came to light, forcing me and Victoria to grasp the horrifying scope of his crimes after we exposed the school system's culture of silence in Dallas, Texas, and after other teachers admitted they'd reported him but were ignored. I'm the narrator, and I'll never forget the chill that ran through me when Detective Sarah Mills explained the sickening meaning behind those stars, a detail that made our entire fight for justice darker than ever. Sarah, her eyes deadly serious, pointed to the gradebook we found in Coach Parks' classroom and said, "These stars aren't for extra credit. They mark how far he went with each of you." 1 star meant suggestive comments, 2 stars meant inappropriate touching, and 5 stars, like Victoria's case, was the worst. She was pregnant with his child. It felt like a knife to the heart. Unimaginable that a predator like Coach Parks could systematize his crimes right in his gradebook, like a hunter tallying his kills. How could we keep going when Coach Parks was finally suspended, parents erupted in outrage, and justice still hung out of reach? Coach Parks was suspended and parents lost it, leaving justice still out of reach after Victoria and I uncovered the horrifying truth behind the stars in his gradebook, after grasping the full scope of his crimes at our high school in Dallas, Texas. I'm the narrator, and I couldn't believe that even as the truth started to break through, with Detective Sarah Mills securing enough evidence to get Coach Parks suspended, a furious backlash from the community erupted, like a Texas prairie storm threatening to drown our fight for justice. People who'd hailed him as the model teacher now rallied to his defense, piling more pain on victims like Victoria. Just days after Sarah submitted her report to the Dallas School District, Coach Parks was suspended, banned from campus during the investigation. Word spread like wildfire, and the school exploded. But instead of supporting the victims, many parents in Oak Lawn, folks who'd practically worshipped him, held meetings in the school auditorium, demanding his vindication. "Coach Parks is an outstanding teacher. How could he do this?" one parent shouted at a meeting, voice dripping with outrage. "These kids are trashing his reputation." Victoria and I stood outside the auditorium, catching every word through the door, my heart in a vice as they not only refused to believe us, but championed the predator who'd hurt so many girls. Some parents even called us lying teens or attention seekers, as if Victoria's pain, pregnant with his child, was just a made-up story. It got worse. The backlash didn't stop with parents. Classmates at Dallas High ramped up their bullying, threatening Snapchat messages, vicious whispers in the halls, and new AI-generated explicit photos of Victoria circulating, like a final blow to silence us. Victoria, pregnant and resilient, held strong, but I saw her eyes grow weary, like she was fighting a battle with no end. We both knew justice was still a long way off. Coach Parks' reputation was still shielding him, and we were facing a brutal war of rumors. How could we push forward when the whole community turned against us, and a new fight erupted to protect the truth? A new fight erupted to protect the truth, forcing me and Victoria to face the nastiest wave of rumors yet, after Coach Parks' suspension sparked a furious backlash from parents in Dallas, Texas, and the community turned on us to defend their model teacher. I'm the narrator, and I couldn't believe that even as Coach Parks' crimes started coming to light, we were still battling lies, vicious gossip, and relentless bullying from those around us. But in that darkness, a faint glimmer shone through, like the first sunlight after a Texas prairie storm, as we began to see small shifts in our school community. The rumor war ignited right after Coach Parks' suspension. His supporters in Oak Lawn kept spreading lies, branding me and Victoria as liars, and teens out to ruin a stellar teacher's reputation. AI-generated explicit photos of Victoria, fake images showing her in compromising poses, kept circulating on social media from Snapchat to Instagram, with cruel comments like, "She deserves it for slandering Coach Parks." Victoria, pregnant and already battered by so much, faced threatening messages, scornful glares in the halls of Dallas High, and whispers behind her back like, "She's just chasing clout." But Detective Sarah Mills didn't back down. She traced the AI photos and pinned them to a male classmate who'd made them to avenge Coach Parks. He got a week's suspension, and to my shock, that sparked a change. A few classmates started to soften. One girl, Ava, who'd mocked Victoria, came up, head bowed, and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't know how bad this was." But not everyone came around. Plenty of kids kept sneering, whispering behind our backs as if the truth wasn't enough to wake them up. Victoria and I stood in the school courtyard, caught between hope and heartache, knowing this fight was far from over. Still, I could feel the truth starting to break through, one small step at a time, like water wearing down stone in a Texas prairie. How could we have guessed that Coach Parks would soon be arrested and charged as the final evidence was uncovered at his house and justice finally started to take hold? Coach Parks was finally arrested and charged when damning evidence was found at his home, delivering the justice Victoria and I fought tirelessly for, after enduring a brutal war of rumors, after the Dallas, Texas community turned on us to defend him despite his suspension. I'm the narrator, And I'll never forget the rush of relief mixed with raw emotion when Detective Sarah Mills called us to the Fort Worth Police Department to announce that Coach Parks, the predator who hurt Victoria, got her pregnant, and nearly attacked me, was in custody, like a blazing ray of justice breaking through a long Texas prairie storm. This was the moment we'd been waiting for, when the truth finally roared. Sarah searched Coach Parks' house in Oak Lawn after securing a court warrant backed by victims' testimonies and the evidence we'd gathered. What she found chilled me to the bone. Stacks of secretly taken photos of female students, detailed notes on his actions with each girl, and more handwritten letters from past victims, like the one we found in his classroom, but even more horrifying. One letter, dated 2021, pleaded, "Please stop, I can't take it anymore," proving he'd been at this for years. Sarah also uncovered messages on his computer, texts he sent to Brittany and other girls, full of predatory advances and threats. With ironclad evidence, Coach Parks was arrested at his Dallas home one early morning, and I'll never forget the local news clip. Him in handcuffs, face pale, no trace left of the model teacher the community once idolized. He faced multiple charges, from child abuse to misconduct with students, and at trial, he pled guilty for a reduced sentence. In the end, he got 15 years in prison and a spot on the sex offender registry, an outcome Victoria and I never dared dream of after everything we'd been through. Victoria and I clung to each other, sobbing at the Fort Worth police station when we heard the news, feeling like a crushing weight had lifted, like the first sunlight after an endless storm. How could we have guessed the principal would face consequences too, as the truth kept spreading and the system was finally forced to change? The principal finally faced consequences as the truth spread and the system was forced to change after Coach Parks was arrested and sentenced to 15 years after undeniable evidence was uncovered at his home in Dallas, Texas. I'm the narrator, and I'll never forget the mix of relief and rage when the principal, who dismissed Victoria's accusations and threatened us when we brought evidence, had to answer for the silence she'd enforced, like a massive wave crashing over the Texas prairie, sweeping away everything that hid Coach Parks' crimes. This was a moment when justice reached not just victims like Victoria, but served as a wake-up call for a system that failed to protect us. Weeks after Coach Parks' sentencing, pressure from the Dallas community and local media grew too intense for the school district to ignore. Parents who'd once defended him now turned on the administration, demanding answers for why Victoria's and other teachers' warnings were brushed off for years. An emergency meeting was held in the school auditorium in Oak Lawn, and Victoria and I stood outside hearing shouts of outrage as the principal took the stage. The woman who'd stared us down with icy eyes now bowed her head, voice trembling. "I've decided to retire early to make way for needed change." But everyone knew it wasn't retirement. It was an escape. A way to dodge being fired after leaked internal emails revealed she'd deliberately ignored warnings about Coach Parks since 2021. Her stepping down was a small but vital victory, like the first sunlight after a relentless storm, sparking hope that the system wouldn't shield predators like Coach Parks anymore. The Dallas School District had to act. They rolled out new policies, including an anonymous reporting hotline for students and mandatory abuse prevention training for all teachers, a step we hoped would protect other girls in the future. Victoria and I locked eyes, knowing that even with the principal gone, our journey wasn't over. We wanted this justice to leave a lasting legacy. How could we have imagined that Victoria would find healing after all this trauma, becoming the strongest person I've ever known? Victoria found healing after all her trauma, becoming the strongest person I've ever known after the principal stepped down and the Dallas, Texas school system was forced to change after Coach Parks was convicted and sentenced to 15 years. I'm the narrator, and I'll never forget Victoria's journey. The girl who saved me from him behind the school, who carried a predator's child and was shunned by our entire school. Yet, through it all, Victoria didn't break. She rose, mended her wounds, and became a beacon of resilience, like a wildflower blooming defiant through a Texas prairie after a brutal storm, inspiring everyone who'd been hurt like her. After the trial wrapped up in early 2025, Victoria began her healing journey. She moved in with her aunt in a quiet Dallas suburb, far from the judgmental stares and cruel whispers that once cut her deep. Victoria gave birth to her daughter Hope, a name chosen to remind her that even in darkness, there's light to reach for. Though a single mom at 17, Victoria didn't drop out. She enrolled in a special online learning program through the Dallas School District, made possible by the new policies we fought for. With her family's support and a counselor's guidance, she slowly overcame the trauma of Coach Parks, the days of being ostracized, and the AI-generated explicit photos that had spread. Victoria graduated high school with honors in spring 2025, and I'll never forget her on that Dallas graduation stage, her smile radiant as sunlight, baby Hope in her aunt's arms, while I and a few classmates who'd apologized to her clapped until our hands hurt. "I want to be a social worker," Victoria told me after the ceremony, her eyes alight with purpose, to help girls like us. Silenced, hurt, but still able to rise. Watching Victoria cradle Hope, I felt her strength. She didn't just survive a nightmare. She turned her pain into a mission to lift others, a true warrior. How could I have imagined our journey would spark a greater legacy as other schools began adopting the reporting system we fought to create? Our journey left a legacy far greater than we ever imagined, as schools across Texas began adopting the reporting system we fought for. After Victoria rose above her trauma to become the strongest person I've ever known, after she graduated with honors and set her sights on social work in Dallas, Texas. I'm the narrator, and I'll never forget the swell of pride and hope watching the changes we sparked. Changes that not only brought justice for Victoria and Coach Parks' other victims, but safeguarded future girls, like a ripple spreading from Dallas across Texas and beyond. This wasn't just our victory, it was a triumph for everyone silenced, abandoned by the system. After Coach Parks' case in 2025, the Dallas School District didn't just implement an anonymous reporting hotline and mandatory teacher training. Their policies became a blueprint for others in Texas. Schools in Houston, Austin, and even Fort Worth adopted similar models, with 24/7 hotlines where students could report abuse without fear of retaliation, like the kind Victoria endured. A workshop in Dallas's Oak Lawn, held months later, brought in experts from the Fort Worth Police Department to share how to spot and stop school abuse. Victoria and I were invited, and I'll never forget the fire in her eyes when a Houston school district rep said, "Because of you, we've saved other girls. You've changed how we protect students." Those words hit like a cool breeze after a storm, like sunlight blazing across a Texas prairie. Proof our pain wasn't for nothing. I found my own path too. After everything, I enrolled in law school at a Dallas university, dreaming of becoming a lawyer for those the system fails. "We're not just students," I told Victoria one afternoon at White Rock Lake Park. "We're the earthquake that shook the system." Looking back, I see our journey didn't just deliver justice. It forged an enduring legacy, a reminder that the voices of the silenced can topple a system. How could we spread this message further, so those crushed by the powerful know they're never alone? We're sharing this message to show those oppressed by the powerful that they're never alone. That's my mission after the legacy Victoria and I created, after Texas schools transformed and we carved new paths in Dallas. I'm the narrator, and this Reddit true crime story isn't just about justice for Victoria, the girl who bore Coach Parks' child and was shunned by our school. It's a call to you in Texas, to anyone hurt, silenced. Have you or a loved one been crushed by authority, forsaken by the system like we were? You're not alone. Victoria rose, and so did I, to champion the truth, to shield other girls, and we rattled a whole system. You can too. Speak up, seek allies who trust you, like Ms. Tran and Detective Sarah Mills did for us. Truth carries power, and your voice counts, like sunlight piercing a Texas prairie storm. How can we fuel justice together with small, meaningful steps right in the comments below? Let's spread justice together with small but meaningful actions right in the comments. That's my call to you after sharing that you're not alone. After Victoria and I stood up to expose Coach Parks and transform the system in Dallas, Texas. I'm the narrator, and I want to hear your story. What would you do in our shoes when a whole school turns its back and the system shields a predator? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because every story matters. Every voice can inspire, just like Victoria inspired me. If you believe justice deserves to shine like sunlight bursting through a Texas prairie storm, hit that like button and share this video with someone in Dallas, Houston, or anywhere, so they know their voice has power. Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping Reddit true crime stories, tales that'll move you and fire you up to stand for truth. Thank you, Texas, for hearing our journey. See you in the next video.